supposed to be live now. I can't see myself, but let me refresh on YouTube. Anyway, you're not here, as I said, to see my face. You see that every day, and it's ugly enough. You're here to see Lee. But oddly enough, as I was saying, I can see myself on Restream, but I'm seeing myself on YouTube. So I guess I'll stay on YouTube so I can see myself. I don't know. Anyway, hello everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good night, depending on the time of the day you're watching this. We are time traveling here because it takes from Spain to the US, west or east, 6 hours. But with Lee, just 1 hour. So our wormhole is really small.
Yeah.
So it's a small time traveling, but it's my time traveling anyway. After all that, how are you, Lee? How's things for you?
I'm good, man. Yeah, not too bad, thank you. All things considered. Yeah, sort of, trucking along yourself.
Everything is just going, I don't know, the way we're supposed to. Again, I guess until the vaccines, get to us. Have you been vaccinated or not yet?
Yeah, well, at least there is like a light at the end of the tunnel for once, right?
That's something that was really needed. Okay, so imagine my name is Victor Frankenstein. Nice to meet you. I just became the doctor for all the world with this rotting pen. I just cured everybody. First you, because you're my friend. I just cured you, and then the rest of the world. So, what's the thing that you've been missing for like forever? That you're saying, oh my God, the moment I am free from this shit, this is the first thing I'm gonna do. What it would be for you?
It's probably go to the pub, to be honest. Go to the pub, go for a curry, or just restaurants. I really miss that. That's the sort of thing I really miss. Just be honest, go for a Sunday lunch or something that that kind of thing with the family, or hook up with some mates and go to the pub. Yeah, that sort of thing. But also like I've been trying to sort of create like a bit of a comic shop sort of vibe in the room because like I'm so desperate to get into shops again and comic shops. I'm missing everything pretty much. I work on my own, and apart from seeing the family when I go home, I don't see or speak to anybody day in, day out. So it's kind of driving me a bit nuts, to be honest. I've
seen, but you have it behind you, by the way. I'm not looking at the toy. I'm not looking at the toys. I don't care. I'm looking at, you have Akira there. The X-Men, that's X-Men by Jim Lee, I guess.
Yeah, just got that. Yeah.
Nice. And the Bible, Love and Rockets. That's the Bible.
Yeah. There is. I do have the full-on, Fantagraphics art of that, which is something else. Yeah, big.
You have the Jaime Hernandez artist edition.
Yes. Yeah.
We are not, as Monty Python used to say, we are not worthy.
None of us are worthy of that. That is the Bible, like you say. That is the gold standard.
So, if I ask you why, if in all the possibilities you have as an artist to do, whatever you could do, illustrator, storyboard artist, posters, blah blah blah, why the masochism? I mean, why did you decide to do comics?
Well, comics were like the first thing I ever saw, really. I have like an older brother and sister, and they collected Marvel comics. I think DC were hard to get back in those days in the UK. And so like the first things I ever saw, I'd open up this, when they were kept in like this big kind of trunk that I wasn't allowed in. So the minute they went out of the house, I was straight in there. So I was seeing all these kind of Buscema covers, and like they had like Silver Surfer 1 and all these Avengers covers and stuff. So they've always been magical to me. But then I've worked pretty much after leaving art college. I worked solidly in design, and then went into concept design and like for games companies. But comics just didn't seem like an avenue I could get to really, because apart from 2000 AD, which I didn't really grow up reading, because I said I grew up with it in like kind of an American comics house, and then at art college I kind of discovered like Deadline and sort of Tank Girl and Phil Bond stuff and that, and then Mobius and Bilal and all that stuff. That's that kind of, I went down that route, but it just didn't seem to be a job I could possibly do. It was only when I was working in games and I was chatting to a few guys who were into comics when they saw my stuff, and they were like, "Oh, you could do comics," and I was like, "Wow, I didn't know I could." So that's when I started sending a few things off. But it's always been my first love.
Hmm. And have you ever thought about, like, I can't take it anymore, I'm gonna quit?
All the time.
Or you are in that sense, as I guess all of us are.
Yeah.
Once the bug bites you, you can never leave. You're hooked for life.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's the storytelling element I would miss, because as I've heard some of your other guests say as well, it's like it's brutal, really. The job is hard, and when you explain that to someone who doesn't do it, they're like, yeah, right. But it is. I mean, the hours are crazy, and it's just as you finish one book, the next one's sort of due, so it's sort of non-stop. So you do have to love it. I think you have to have a deep-rooted, sort of, like say, masochism, and just a sort of a madness for it, really. But I think when I find myself thinking, well, maybe I'll just do covers for a bit or whatever, I find myself within like a few weeks just going crazy, wanting to tell stories. So that seems to be the real hook for me.
Do you feel that part of when you're finishing one project and you're like, oh my God, I need a rest, I'm burned. But then like 5 minutes later, somebody comes with another project and you're already thinking, the exhaustion disappears and you're like, let's go for it.
Yeah, I'm literally in the middle of that situation right now. Yes, something's popped along that it doesn't leave me much breathing room between two projects, but it's such a great thing that I can't not do it. So you get all excited again, like you say. But coming off doing Shadecraft and then Captain Marvel and then Shadecraft, so that was kind of a, because they're quite different feelings book-wise. So that there's a little bit of adjustment in between those things. There was a bit because sometimes you think, well, I'll just go straight in. I'll just start the next day. I'll just start drawing the other thing. But there is an adjustment, because the books are, you do have to kind of get with because you got to act like these characters. You've got to put, what these characters are feeling. You've got to kind of be, So it's very difficult to sort of go from someone who's like a normal, say with Shadecraft I'm doing now, who's like a normal girl reacting to crazy things, to Carol Danvers punching someone through a wall. It's just a different feel. So there is that little, it's ideally you'd have like a week off between and then. But life isn't like that.
Ideally.
Yeah.
No,
ideally, stroke never ever happens.
But exactly. Well, if you have one day, but anyway.
Yeah. And then
you touch an important subject, because many people think that you just jump from one project to the next, and even when you're talking about superhero comics, that's not the case. I mean, if you move from, I don't know, let's say Immortal Hulk, which is pure horror, and then you move to Captain Marvel, who has sci-fi mixed with superheroes, etc., and she's supposed to be the strongest character in the Marvel U. It's not even the same mentality, even if it's superheroes, right? You have to change
completely,
because it's like, okay, I have to put myself into horror mode or sci-fi mode, or as you said, a normal girl who gets into straight situations. But in this case, even being corporate comics, it's not that easy as people think, that to move from one project to the next, because you have to change your frame of mind, right?
100%, yeah, totally. Because it is, if you're doing like pin-ups, say, you might be able to get away with that. But if you're trying to tell these stories and have the characters react in a realistic way, albeit like a crazy situation, you need to sort of sync with that character, and that takes a little bit of time.
Mm-hmm. And then let's continue that path. Do you use different? Let me say this way, different brain muscles when you're working on corporate than in creator own, or it's not creator or corporate, is based on the type of story you're trying to tell?
There's a bit of that. I think, I do adjust the style perhaps a little bit depending on the tone of the project, but I definitely feel more free when it's creator owned, because it's like, I don't feel there's a certain expectation of a sort of like a house style or a certain vibe. There's always that kind of that element. Whereas when it's like my own stuff, I'm just like, well, this is which is a dangerous thing, because you should always try and find your own voice and then sing with it no matter what you're doing. Mm-hmm. But I think with creator own, just all of that is automatically taken away, and you're more like trying to come up with, how's this work? There's no Bible for it apart from what I've created. So usually it's a situation where, apart from on the page from the script from like Joe, it's a case of just we'll go, well, how does that look? Oh, well, it's up to me, I suppose. So it's freeing eventually, but at least I don't have to sit there and go, well, where does that scene go from this new costume that this character suddenly had? That sort of takes. I've had that where it's taken a lot of time, when there's a lot of characters, and I've had to check each costume all the time. So that can take a bit of while.
Absolutely. And how much do you learn about yourself as a creator when you're doing these create your own books? Or especially not when you're doing them, because in many cases, because you're so involved with the pages. You just go with the flow because you have to get it done, etc. But when you get the book back printed and you read it for the first time, how much do you learn about yourself?
Well, I mean, it's a funny one, because I tend to not want to look at them at all. I'll look at the technical side of them, like the printing, and make sure it's all, and make sure everything's there. But yeah, I don't really like to look at them immediately. But sometimes I'll discover something I did, a couple of years back. Then I'll be like, oh yeah, this is interesting. This is and you can sort of see it with perhaps a bit more of an outsider's eyes. But it's always nice if you've got a character that you feel sort of is a little bit similar to yourself, or reacts in similar ways and stuff. Then you can kind of then it's much more. You can you feel yourself sort of resonating with the character, and that's always nice. And if people react to that in a positive way too. Yeah. But yeah, no, I tend to not want to see anything I've just done.
Okay, but so let me take it the other way then. While you're working on one of those projects, how much do you how much do you change things based on who you are as a creator, or based on who you are as a person? Meaning, you go a certain path as a human being and as a creator. But you're involved in a page. Sometimes you react with emotions to what you're telling, saying, no, this doesn't feel right, and change the page, or you just follow it and this is what the script says, I have to do it. Yeah,
well, that's a good question. I think I just threw a double page straight away, actually, because it didn't land the moment the way I wanted it to land. So everything was there that was asked for, but I just felt it was too. It wasn't sort of. It's quite it's quite a quiet kind of splash as well, which is hard to do actually. If everything's exploding, it's much easier. But a quiet sort of characterful moment in a dual page is hard. I just felt it wasn't really dramatic enough, or really kind of passionate enough. So I just had to throw the whole thing out and start again. But I wanted, I've done that a few times with, especially with the book I'm on now. Just because I wanted, things like making the shadows and stuff come to life. If that's not working, it's got to go. And unfortunately, because of the way I've chosen to do it, using the texture of the paper and then a lot of ink wash, I can't Photoshop it because I need the texture to come through.
Yeah.
So unless I'm going to spend ages making a brush that does that, which I don't know how to do, it's just easier for me to just go back and start again. But it does mean, sort of days work sort of out the window type thing.
So by the end of the day, you are more of just, as Scott McCloud would say, pointing at the screen, as he did with me. These are the structural people, and this is the emotional people in this blah blah blah.
Right.
You are more in the field of the emotional people, right?
Yes,
the emotion has to not be only in the page, but reflect to you as a creator. Like, I believe in this page, right?
Yeah. I've got to. It's all about the characters, really, and if I've got to be able to sort of believe what they're doing. Which is why sometimes, the hardest part of the job is the layouts, really, and the designing. The actual drawing is sort of the end result, but it's not the hardest part. The hardest part is choosing the 500 million versions of whatever that script says you could do, but just really trying to sell those emotions, So, and even when you're down to the stage where you maybe get some reference or whatever like that, you can still think, actually, this is too far away, or there's, I need to get further in on this character, or there's, it's too, we're too removed. We need to get right in there, and then I'll sort of have to start that again. So quite often the layouts will take the longest, even if they're just pretty much, scribbles, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that I was talking to Jason Aaron and some other writers, and I'm pretty sure Kelly Thompson, Captain Marvel, or Joe, Shadecraft and Skyward would agree with me. With Jason, not with me. They were asking. They always ask, when is the most important part of their job, and people believe it's that when they're typing, and all of them tell me no. This when I'm looking at like this,
Yeah.
and people think I'm doing nothing, that's when I'm working the most, because that's when the ideas and the structure come. And then you go and do the technical part, which is drawing.
Sure.
And I always apply that in terms of artists, and please correct me if I'm wrong, to the layouts. Because the layouts for me is the thinking part for the writer. And then you get to the more, to the finishes, to the pencils or the inks or the ink wash in this case, which are already, the technique that you learn through the years. You can change things there, but all the creation comes in the layouts, right?
Yeah, definitely. And it's that kind of, you just have to. It's all the choices you're making constantly, basically, as well. Because I'm not having to create this thing from scratch in terms of there's a script I'm working from, but like as you give this to sort of 10 artists, and they'll come up with 10 completely different designs in layout. So it's that kind of thing. Is this the right choice? But I guess that's what makes you have your style, I suppose, as well.
Exactly. That's why something else that I was talking to who was it, Kelisu the Conic, were honestly making fun of creators who say, no, there's nothing of me in my job, and we were all saying that's bullshit. Everything that is on a page, and the excuse of people, of course, is, I talk about Nazis, I'm not a Nazi. It's like, yeah, thank you, we know that, but that's not what we mean. What we mean is what you do on a page as a writer, as an artist, is based on your experiences, is based on your work. It's unique. So the choice you make, as you were saying, in the layouts, it's your choice.
Yes, yeah.
Right? So what makes it your choice?
Yeah. It's funny, actually, because when I've been in real deadline sort of struggles and stuff, it's been like, how do I get this out the door? And I used to share a studio with Jock, and a couple of times he'd do layouts for me on some things. But if I found that they were so alien in terms of how I would approach a page, they took me longer than if I'd just done it myself, because he's just got a very different approach, and it's an amazing approach, but it's like it didn't resonate so much with me then. I mean, this is going back a long time, maybe it'd be different now, but it was just a case of but that's just so different from what I've got going on before and after, but it would be interesting to see how that. I think we'd probably be more sort of gelled now, but I was quite early on in my comic days as well, so perhaps we were just operating at a different level.
And absolutely, and it's also part of a fun part of it, I guess, that if you and Jock get together, now that I cure, I'm God and cure everybody with my syringe, Frankenstein, nice to meet you. Now, as I'm saying, if you and Jock and yourself got together again just to talk about layouts, it'll be probably completely different to what you guys did back in the day. And you would be learning from, so you evolved this way and you evolved this way. Yeah. So that could be a complete, I guess that has to be a big part of the fun of being an artist, right? Yeah,
and that's the hard part about working on your own all the time as well, because when we used to share a studio, we would inspire each other, and like we'd be like, well, how are you going to do this? And then someone would be like, oh, maybe you should move that there. You'd be like, oh yeah, and then that could be that, and then off you go, So with this lot, and we do meet, on a regular basis. Before lockdown, we used to meet on a regular basis, even though we haven't shared a studio for about 10 years. In fact, the reason I'm in this big room now, because I was in a smaller room in this building, was he's meant to be in here now, working, but we can't because of lockdown. But yeah, so that's a real that sort of firing off each other, with any creator. That's something you really miss when you work with other people. And that's why conventions and stuff were so vital. I didn't realize how vital they were until they'd gone, because it was just like a release of of some pressure, and then you chat to people, you come back so inspired, knackered but inspired, and just think, I can't wait. This is why I do this. I do this because there are people out there who love comics, and other creators who they've said something, and it's just completely changed the way I think about this, and this thing, this one approach, or whatever. And so you come back kind of all full of inspiration, and that's just. That's I cannot wait for that.
That's the other part I was going to mention about the conventions, is that you don't know what you're missing until it's taken away from you, right?
Yeah.
Because if they asked us a year ago, what would we say? And be honest, like, a bit burned down. I need to focus on work and the family and all that. But the moment they take it away from you, like 3 months later, you're like, give me that. Give me that. I need it.
only just started going as well. I've been to about, I think I've done about 5 of the New York shows, but and a couple of Paris. I was meant to go to Angoulême in February. I've never done that before. And I went to San Diego once. So I was just kind of, this 2020, I was like, do you know what, 2020, I'm going to do like loads of shows, right? And I spoke to an art rep. He was like, yeah, we got you here, we got you here. Yeah. And then obviously no one can. I mean, again, it's, we've stayed healthy and well, so I'm not complaining. But yeah, it was like a case of I actually was thinking, no, I'm really, really up for conventions at the moment before this happened. So now I don't know. I get invited to them for happening like in late, in autumn, say, or winter. But I'm not sure at the moment, really. Bit nervous about them. I
organize conventions, so for me this has been a financial hit, as you can imagine. But yeah. Every time I'm asked when are they coming back, I answer in 2 ways. I say, wait, you're asking when are they coming back, or when I think it would be safe to go back?
Yeah.
Two different things. Mm-hmm. If you ask me when are they coming back, probably in June, July, there will be conventions.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because of the amount of Spain expects to be herd immunity by what was it? Middle of July, more or less.
Oh, okay.
So that's August.
Yeah.
Because AstraZeneca, some of the companies are being late, but at the same time, some of the companies, like Johnson & Johnson, there's more vaccines every day. So by the end of the day, and the UK is going really fast with the first dose. So the moment you guys work on those,
I think I should be vaccinated by May. I think I should get my first.
Yeah, it'll be more or less between all of us. It'll be between end of May, end of June, something like that. So that's when you start thinking it's pretty safe. But I don't think it's enough. 70% for people to trust to go to conventions. And as an organizer, I think the same thing. But if you tell me, except for New York Comic Con, because of the Jabbits, not because of New York, because of the Jabbits. You know how that place is. If they ask you, could you feel safe going to the Jabbits in October? Fuck no.
Yeah. I mean, that place never felt safe in the best of times.
It's not. Oh, I never told you this anecdote. Just as a quick side note. When I got married, my wife had never been to New York. She's an architect. I have been 1,000 times because of work, but she was like, oh, I want to go there. Yeah. Of course, as an architect, she wanted to visit the Jabbits.
Sure.
Because, you need to see the convention center in New York. And I was like, I need to. Sorry.
All the slides.
Big Artist Edition 1 to 4. So, and I was telling her, okay, we go. And for like 30 minutes, we are going around. For whatever reason, she said, I'm an architect, and they just let us in. Whatever. But we go around, blah, blah, blah. And by the end of it, she's like, okay, we'll go around quick and then start pointing things. And she started pointing like 35 things, and each of them was, this could be illegal in Europe. This could be illegal in Europe. This could be illegal in Europe. There's no, just see those doors. Where's the other doors, emergency doors? Where's the spaces for people to walk? And I was like, honey, I come here twice a year. Stop.
Yeah.
But that's how the place is. So you're asking me, would you feel safe going to the Jabbits in October?
No, blimey, no. It's like a giant Petri dish.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been a bit late for a signing, say, or something, and tried to make my way through the Jabbit. With, I made the mistake once of going in with like a portfolio as well. People were not amused. No. You get told off if you stand still as well. So there's no way. But
I'd say, that they have delayed San Diego to November, right?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they're doing it smaller than 3 days. But that place, I could feel safe because first, it's November. Second, remember how big the convention center is and how open. It has $1 million in the front, $1 million in the back, a lot of ventilation, and you are 5 meters away from the sea.
Yeah,
from the ocean. So everything is pretty open. And I don't know when was the last time you went, but in the last few years they've opened the convention a lot. There's a million things that are outside.
Oh, really? It's like 5 years ago that way.
Yeah. So the last time I went was the last time it was done 2 years ago, and literally the Cosmos, TV show was in a building. The activation for whatever TV show. Most of the stuff that covered the convention center that wasn't comics, it's out of the convention center now.
Right.
So everything is really open and it's a lot safer. So if you ask that, I think that October, November, again, except for New York Comic Con, and not because of New York Comic Con, but the Jabbets, I think that's going to be safe. So if I'm inviting, or if I say I'm told to organize a show there, I feel safe for people, because if we got UK, Spain, United States, as you know, is going really fast. Fortunately, Trump isn't there anymore, so they're taking it seriously. So if we are going to get herd immunity, let's say by the midsummer,
Yeah.
safe. October, November should be, 90%, and that's enough.
Yeah, I mean, they're talking about maybe us needing another one in the winter, aren't they, to kind of tide us over. So I don't know what the situation with in terms of contagion is and stuff. But yeah, I should have had both by then. I imagine we both have had both jabs by then. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess. I mean, it's that kind of thing where it's never going to be 100%.
No, absolutely
not. But it sort of feels like if we've got the jab, it would be perhaps worth having a sort of going to, because from the mental sort of health aspect, I think
absolutely.
So yeah,
absolutely, because there's a part, you're absolutely right. There's a part that people is not considering, which is for us who are used to work at home, maybe less. But it's a mental strain anyway, right? For everybody. Believe it, whether they tell us, you work at home, you don't feel the difference. I always say, I do, because before I just could walk with my dog, feeling completely safe, go to the park, not seeing somebody 100 meters away and, rushing, where's my mask? I have it on. Feeling, and not thinking about, maybe if I stay without a mask, I can die or get somebody with a contagion or something. So the mental stress is there anyway, right?
Yeah. Well, it's also just, it's keeping everyone around you safe is the thing, isn't it? So I didn't realize how much, because I'm used to working on my own, like you're saying, but I would be lucky because I work on my own. I was able to still come to work even through lockdown, because I just come in, lock the door, and I don't really interact with anybody, so it was all safe. But I just found myself just being worried about my wife and children. Basically, the entire day. It felt wrong to be away, really. Not that I could have done anything there, but it just felt like I was, that was my only thought. So I was doing the comics, but then my sort of main thought was the family, and then the comics were sort of being seen through that. So it felt quite weird, almost like working kind of remotely, really, in terms of just getting the job done, but with this kind of spectre, there all the time. So my wife's already had her first jab. So, but the boys went back to school yesterday, so they're mixing again with everyone, and so you just don't know. They all had tests before they went in, and the entire year was free of infection. But who knows? It's a bit of a lottery, really. But.
Yeah, let's just cross fingers and hope for the best.
Exactly.
So, what if I asked you? Do you keep doing comics because of the urge to tell stories, as you said before? Is because of the storytelling part of it? What makes comics unique for you compared to other art forms?
It's weird. When I first started in comics, I realized I hadn't studied them. I read them, if that makes any sense. So when someone gave me a script, I was starting to draw them. I was thinking, I don't know how to draw these, because I find myself, although I'm follow artists and have my favorite artists and love certain artists, I would very much find myself after the third page, I would just be in. I'd just be in the thing. The whole thing was like an experience, rather than me just going, "Oh, that's a really nice drawing," or look how he's used that camera angle. It just didn't go in. I was literally just absorbing them as an experience, and so that's sort of the what they still are for me, really. And also, just look at the best. I mean, they take so long to make, and they take so little time to read. But in that moment, they're still my favorite thing. I mean, I'm a big film buff, and I love music as well. But I don't know. There's a charm about comics for me that it is probably my sort of my happy place, really. So as sort of as much as to the point, the only problem with it, I suppose, is working in comics is that you tend to read fewer comics. I don't get time to read more. If I'm finishing work at midnight and I've got to start again at sort of 9 next morning, the last thing I want to do, is read a comic, or look at a comic. But now and again, I'll be like, oh, I really miss this. And I sit and read, and again, as soon as I'm reading, I'm like, oh yeah, this is why I love these. These are the greatest things ever,
Yeah.
So I don't quite know what the sort of magic is, but I know that I will get a buzz from, say, seeing someone post one of the first comics I ever bought on Twitter, like just the cover, and I'll be like, I'll get like that feeling of seeing it in that shop for the first time, sort of thing. So there's just something magic about them. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I love watching this Twitter account. I don't know if you know it. That is called the Spinner Rack.
Yes, yeah, that's what I was thinking of. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. And I love that, a lot of pros, including, Tom Brevoort, Terry Glassen, and others, just go and say, no, I bought this and that. And I
do it as well. I put Peter Parker, Spectacular Spider-Man, Conan. Yep, I got those. Yeah. I was thinking, who cares? But I was thinking, well, I've got to do it. I did have that issue. I've got to be seen.
But it's fun. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
How, let's be honest here. Be completely honest, because I know where you live. So if you're not honest, I will go and get it to you. Now, how big is your reading pile right now?
Oh, it's ridiculous. I mean, it goes back like years, I think, really. I think the last thing I read that was properly up to date, was House of X. And that was like so it's not up to date. It's probably about 3 years old, right? Something like 2 years old too.
House of X, the new Hickman stuff. Yeah, that's a couple years ago.
Yeah, I will read a couple of things. I tend to follow artists as well. So if Chris Bachalo's got a new comic out, I'm definitely reading that straight away.
Any decent human being, if Chris Bachalo does something, you gotta go. If you don't, you are not decent. You're not human. You have no heart. You have no soul. I'm sorry. So
I do read those. But yeah, there's all these sales, and obviously I buy digital comics as well, and they're terrible when they have those sales on. I'm like, oh yeah, just grab that. I'll reread all of Kirby's Fantastic Four, and I'll reread all of Ditko's Doctor Strange, and then of course I don't, because they just sit there. But I bought like all the Dracula stuff or whatever because of Gene Colan, But I haven't read them. I've looked at them, but I haven't sat read.
Wait, you just said Dracula, Gene Colan. Let me.
Oh man.
I don't know if you can see it right.
Yeah, that's beauty.
I don't see myself, as you know.
That is a lovely piece as well. He's unsung, I think, Gene Colan. Wow, that is gorgeous. That drapery, that cloak.
Yes, that's the most amazing part.
It's amazing.
I got that. People says, "Oh, you spent a lot of money." Nah, that was the old days when you could buy one of these by 100 euros.
Wow.
Now, I'm pretty sure that's not the case. But but you were talking about that, and who are your heroes in that sense? And I'm not talking about influences, because sometimes when people talk about influences, the answer is, and it's logical, is you will never see it or perceive that artist in my job. That's why I talk about heroes in terms of influences. Yeah.
Well, like quite a lot of times, the heroes are the ones that do things you don't do and can't do.
Never say can't. Just say I don't want.
They sort of have an aspect that you wish you could exploit more.
That's a nice way to say it.
So because you think, well, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be more free with that. But then you find yourself going back to just I guess what makes you rightly or wrongly. But heroes wise, I don't know. When I grew up, my first sort of like I say, growing up with the Marvel comics of like my family, the first things I saw were the Buscema and Romita Senior comics. They were like and Kirby and Ditko were there, but I didn't quite get them then. They weren't as sort of attractive. Now I'm sort of in love with their stuff. But I think you have to grow into those a little bit more, perhaps. So I think people who I really love, again, who took me a while to kind of like perhaps understand. I love Paul Pope stuff. Sienkiewicz was a huge. When I was at art college, I did sort of start going down the sort of painting routes like Sienkiewicz, but there was no outlet for it. And then I went and got a job doing sort of graphic design and stuff. So it's just that just went out the window. But that was my first route, really. Was thinking, I'll do that sort, quite, especially the Electra assassin with the kind of quite sort of almost quite cartoony in some ways, and then. But otherwise, I think it's probably just like Mobius, probably is, and Jamie Hewlett as well. But it's hard because they are also, especially Hewlett stuff is an influence on my work. So like for me anyway, it might not come across, but they're definitely in there. So it's hard. They kind of mix in a little bit. But yeah, I do tend to admire a lot of artists who have seemed very free and loose. I'm not a particularly technical artist, and I'm not a fiddly artist, but I am. Because I came from like a graphic background, I spent years stripping away detail to hone it down to a graphic image. I used to like design T-shirts and stuff like that, like for like Mambo sort of things, and so I had to kind of learn to put stuff back into the work when I started doing comics. But yeah, like I say, so Paul Pope, I look at his stuff. There's a guy who's kicking around at the moment, is it Philippe Andrade?
Felipe Andrade. Andrade.
Yeah, I absolutely love his stuff. Really, again, you look at that, and I just think, I wish I had sort of the bottle to do that stuff. It's just so expressive, but still so right. It still works perfectly as a comic. It's a Marvel comic, but it's just
But we go to the point of the artist type A, artist type B, which is artist type A. Let's call it. I don't know, Jeff Darrow.
Yes, yeah.
It's everything, absolutely everything is in there. And even the things you could never imagine exist, they are there.
Yeah.
When you go to the other side, which would be, for example, Jaime Hernandez, as we said before, who's the example of taking the line to not to the limit, but you know what I mean. Is the less is more school. Yeah. So you are in that school, right? The less is more, the more graphic feeling of a page.
Yeah. I mean, I guess one person I forgot to mention as well who's probably my favourite is Dan Clowes.
Yeah.
When I see his stuff and his prints and the sort of the flatness of them, I love flat colours as well. And there's just something so perfect but so kind of quirky about them that it's not something I perhaps could introduce into the stuff I'm doing, but I love it more than pretty much anything, really. That's the one I think gives me the sort of the most sort of the sort of tingle, really, is Clowes. I remember thinking, I wonder how much some of his original art was. Thinking, like it's quite left field and quite underground, sort of really. But it's back in the day, even. But it was still like, okay, it's sort of like 40 grand for like a sketch or something. So I was like, maybe not. But yeah, I adore his stuff. Jaime Hernandez. Yeah, that stuff is just, that was the stuff I was reading before I was in comics. After I sort of left, I stopped reading Marvel around the 90s, and then started reading those the indie books really, and like Deadline and Tango and stuff. And it was Vertigo and Bacallo on Death that brought me back into reading American sort of more mainstream comics.
And following that, just made me think about something. Sorry if I veer, because I just, as I said, I just veer into things. The thing you mentioned pop into my head. How important do you think pattern? I always forget the pronunciation. Pattern recognition is for you as a comic artist.
In what way? Sorry, I don't know what you mean, man.
Imagine, again, as I describe myself pretty accurately, I'm a caveman. So that's a bush. That bush is rustling. There's probably an animal there. It's gonna jump and kill me. I don't need to see the animal. I know that's rustling mean that. In comics, I always put the same example: is you don't need to draw Batman. You do this and this, and everybody knows that's Batman. 2 lines. So that's what I mean. How important it is for you to know when to suggest and not to complete. Suggest things so the reader can complete them. Give them their space to be a part of the storytelling.
Gotcha. I think sort of most of the time, really, I want to kind of give it. I want to just put not the sort of the basic information down, but I think it is quite a sort of direct style that does expect perhaps the reader to sort of fill in certain gaps. I won't draw every. I've been drawing a lot of lockers of late, and there's lots of those little grills in there, and they are a little bit. I've made myself not use rulers and stuff, and kept them a little bit loose because I thought, you know what, actually the information's there, and that sort of in a way it's going to be less dead because of them being a bit wobbly here and there. Well, that's a hope. But no, I think that's my approach to most of it. Really, I'm not like most artists. I guess it's the figure work and the characters' faces and stuff. You really enjoy drawing, and it's later on. So I had to learn more to draw like the backgrounds and the houses. So in a way, they take longer then to become stylized because you've got to learn to draw them. Then you start stylizing them. So it was easier to be stylized with the figure work. Yeah. But I've never really wanted to be sort of overly sort of stuck with having to then take a photograph of some and then draw, a photograph. I never like it when people just take a photograph and Photoshop it and then use a normal sort of their normal style. If that's their style and across the board, that sort of works.
Absolutely.
I always find it.
Let me be clear. I wasn't criticizing that style. I love Brian Hitch as much as the other guy, or I love Jeff Darrow. I love both styles. I am just asking in your style, how much does that fit? You letting as you said, those details loose for the reader to complete.
Yeah, I mean, I think because I have such a sort of a foot in that kind of. I see him in many ways. I see myself as a bit of like more of an indie artist, really, in some respects. So that's definitely I've got one foot in that camp, I think, and I think a lot of that stuff is pretty economical, in its line, and that's definitely the stuff that gets me kind of sort of cooking when I see it. And eventually, like I say, if I think it's actually one of I remember chatting to David. David Aja. About his stuff on Hawkeye, because he said it took ages to do that, because that's really, I'd love to do stuff that's very flat coloured, but that requires such a long time in the ink work to make sure everything is just so that it's like the Mignola stuff, isn't it? Again, it's that kind of thing where what looks simple takes the longest time. You're stripping everything.
Same thing with Jaime, we were mentioning before, with Jaime Hernandez. Yeah. That's what irritates me the most when people says, "Oh, that Hawkeye art is so simple." They're like, "Fuck no."
Yeah.
That takes forever. As you said, no line can be out of place, right? Everything has to be perfect.
That's right. It's all boiled down to the essentials. But one of those little lines, because there's so few lines, any one of those out in a wrong place just throws the whole thing. So it's sort of that's the beauty of it. It's everything you need. You look at a Mike Mignola Hellboy page.
Yes.
It could be mainly slabs of black, but everything you need to know, and you'll see there's depth, there's the scale. It's just amazing.
Absolutely.
And beautiful.
Mm-hmm. How important are page turns for you?
It's pretty important. I mean, I don't sort of control those things, obviously, but in terms of script, but I mean, they are. I do try. I have, bumped things along sometimes to make sure.
That's what I meant. Sorry to interrupt, because in many cases when I ask how important are they for you, is in that sense when we're talking about, hey, stop. You're the writer, I know, but this panel doesn't work here. We have to move things around. How much do you feel compelled to do that to make it work?
I mean, I've been really lucky. I've worked with some amazing writers, and so I do try to service their script first and foremost. I'm not one of the people who's like, this is about me, and Thanks for the script. If I get a chance, I'll put some of that in. It's definitely which I try to service the script as best I can, while still hopefully making it like nice to look at and to read. But there has been a couple of times, like I said, when I've had to sort of say, look, actually this beat would land much more strongly if we push this onto the next page. Or sometimes I'll be like, we don't need 2 panels here. This second panel is, this fifth panel, say, has taken all the sort of the oomph out of that drop on panel 4. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, oh, and then, So I've done that a few times. I don't like to. In fact, actually, probably what I've done more often is added a panel. I to add a panel if there's like a zinger or like a funny line and then another line, or if there's an impactful line and then another line, I will think or whatever. Or perhaps a load of dialogue and then the powerful line. I will make that one a single panel, just because I feel that's where it should. That's where the power is of that dialogue. So it's very much, that's entirely. It's always story led, really. So I haven't really. There's only been a couple of times where we thought, actually, we could make this a, splash. When it's in creator, you've got more sort of leeway with that sort of thing. But me and Joe, they're sort of. I mean, Joe writes the full script, but he's in no way precious about it. If I said to him, I think that might need, to move that one here, or do you mind if we don't say that till the next time? I'd be like, whatever you think.
But that's another important thing in comics you just mentioned. Is I remember that's the first thing that Mark Chiarello ages ago told me about. To teach young artists, it was like, in comics you can't never be precious about anything. You just can't. You have to be able to throw everything away, because that's how comics work, right?
Yeah. Well, the whole point of it is like it's like when a comic isn't really a comic until the lettering is down. That's when it's finished, sort of thing. And so as a result, that's why it's a collaborative job. That's what's so lovely about it. But it's not kind of so unwieldy or unwieldy sort of in its collaboration that you don't feel you're anything to do with it. It's still, you've got a lot of control over that. But I definitely see it as a team effort. And that's why it's really important if the team is all sort of working together. That's why we kept the Skyward team together, because not only do they do lovely work, they're just absolutely fantastic to work with. So everyone's sort of really into it. So that's hugely important. So I don't think you can be sometimes you'll get things not in regards to Skyward or whatever, but or Shadecraft, but in the past you'll get things back and think, okay, I wasn't really expecting it to go that route color-wise or whatever. But I try to, certainly with Shadecraft on at the moment, just said to Antonio, just play, because he's using some really amazing textures now and stuff in there, almost like kind of almost bleed textures and things. So it's quite painterly in places, and it's just amazing to see. That's what we want. That kind of everyone. I think fun comes off the page. So if everyone's enjoying themselves, if it's a slog, and I've worked on a couple of gigs that were hard, a bit more of a slog, and I think that sort of you always worry that that's there on the page. You want there's the joy will spring out of it. I think
that's you're making amazing work, by the way, because you're provoking a lot of new questions in my head every time, which is used for a conversation like this. So you just mentioned joy. That's what I felt when I read Skyward. Was that what we were looking for?
Yeah. Me really early on, when I first talked to Joe about it, we were like, I think Trump had just got in or whatever. I can't remember, but I know it was looking pretty bleak out there, and this was still early. It was we had no idea just how bad it was going to get, but it was set like in the future. There'd been a disaster, but we just don't want to tell another dystopian sort of future story. We want this to be about what happens when bad things happen to people as a planet, and the hope and the endeavor and this sort of the rebuilding. And then we find this character who's actually not only hopeful, but loves this world. She's grown up in this world, and this, what we see as disaster, is pure joy to her. You know, it's made her Spider-Man or Superman. You know, she's off. You know, and yeah, we definitely wanted to have a book that was about hope. Yeah, you know, still conflict and all the stuff that goes that makes it, you know, interesting story, but a character that was essentially sort of hopeful and kind of, you know, found the joy in things. Because I think me and Joe are pretty much like that as well. You know, we've you know, gone through lots of stuff, each of us, as everyone does. But even, you know, some people do, like, we just find the humor in things, and you know, even at the most bleak times, that's sort of what gets you through, really. You know, not everything is just like, you know, this big dirt, you know. So I think that's important. It's not really played on in comics quite so much. But it's why my favorite character is Spider-Man, I suppose, as well. So he is that to me.
Exactly. And it's a fascinating point of view because, as you just mentioned, for her, that's her world. She finds joy in that world. Maybe she sees our world and it will horrify her. Like, you know, everything we have that we consider, you know, normal, put her in New York, in current New York, with all the traffic and all the, you know, and all the smoke and all that, she could probably be horrified. So I found it fascinating. Like, she can find joy because that's her world. That's what she feels like, her own reality.
Yeah.
And for us it's a contrast, but for her, again, put her in our situation, she would probably be horrified, right?
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's sort of the kind of the paradox of her mission, really, because she's sort of working towards this thing that she doesn't know whether she wants. Her sort of best friend, sort of love interest, would be sort of incredibly affected by it. So, and that's what's so weird about the people who do still insist on living on the ground. You know, that sort of, she doesn't quite get that. But it was important for us to have that world too, to show, you know, sort of the difference. So yeah, that was kind of the excitement of it. She was sort of going on this mission, and she, you know, she wasn't always 100% sure. She believed in it herself, you know, and so yeah, it made it interesting.
And you mentioned music before. How is it for you in terms of work? I mean, during the layouts, are you this is where I'm composing like a musician, so get off, I don't need any music, let me alone. If anybody, you know, just walks in the room and I'm yelled back, out now, not now. And then when you go to pencils and inks and ink washes, you introduce more music into the process, or sounds or podcasts or movies or whatever, or no noise at all during the whole process?
No, I'd go mental if I didn't have some noise. I have to have some sound in the space. I mean, I did now and again, I will, but it's almost a case of if things have run out, of, you know, stop playing, and I still find myself still working, I'll be like, this is actually quite nice, some silence. But no, I don't want to, you know, sort of, I don't need to hear my own thoughts or what's going on in my own head. I'd rather just be like, so when I'm doing layouts, I tend to have music on, because I'm listening to it and hearing it, but I'm not perhaps listening to the specific someone having a conversation or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where you really want to sort of, you know, get the juices flowing, really. So you want a bit of a groove going in the room, and then for the pencil, when I'm actually sort of sitting and penciling and inking, then I'll tend to probably have films on mainly. So as a result, I've sort of probably seen all films ever, because they're just always constantly on some way, or a lot of podcasts, and a lot of audiobooks as well. So yeah, I like that. I think, again, that's the sort of company thing as well. They're just some human voices. So music, yeah, definitely part of it. When I was younger, music was like all the time. But as I've got older, it's sort of, I find it kind of gets sort of a little bit overwhelming after a while. And I'm working in a building with quite a lot of people, so no one wants to hear me sort of singing. But if I can't sing, I don't want to listen to music. So so it's limited. So yeah, I tend to just, from actual the creation, a lot of times in layouts, I mean, there's too much information, I don't know. But like for layouts, quite often I'll just go to bed, and I'll put the sort of background, like a TV on, just a background TV, and Rachel's still downstairs, whatever, and the kids will be like in their room, and I'll just sit in bed with like a drawing board, and I'll do my layouts there, because it's just a little, it's not here. This is all I see 90% of the time. but it's not in the downstairs in the lounge where there's too much noise. It's a little bit of sort of a sanctuary. But yeah, that sort of tends to be how. That's probably what I'll be doing tonight, David. If you want to picture that.
Okay. Wait, no. I need to clean myself. Anyway, what you were saying, but is there any way you adapt the music to what you're drawing? I mean, Olivier Coipel told me some time ago, and it was amazing that, again, layouts is nothing for him, but the more he gets into it, he gets music in it. But when he goes, and after reading the script and all that, he's like, okay, I'm going to have an epic scene. So, okay, this playlist, Lord of the Rings, whatever. Then, oh, this is romantic. So, okay, French, romantic. Right. So he adapts because he thinks that I get more into the groove. I get more into the story. And I think that's going to reflect in my pages because the pulse of my work is connected to the music. Is that something you do at all? Or you are like, nah, that's bullshit?
No, I completely agree. I think music is, I find that everything I'm doing when there's music is better. Because it loosens you up, right? I used to be in a band. I used to be a hip hop DJ back in the day and stuff. So I love music. So yeah, it's a huge thing. And funny enough, actually, I can't remember what it was. It might have been Captain Marvel: Last Avenger. When I was working on that, I started to do that. I started to play a lot of Marvel soundtracks and stuff. Because it was a lot of epic fighting battles and stuff, and it did help. Yeah, I haven't done it since, but actually that's not true. No, because one of the watchwords for all the things I've kept in my mind when I'm doing the Shadecraft is it follows.
Mm-hmm.
It follows, and that's got an amazing soundtrack by Disaster Piece. So I've had that on when I was first starting at issue 1 as well, because I wanted that, So, and to the point where when Image put that little trailer out, I asked if they'd got anything in their library that was a little bit like sort of It Follows, because that was the sort of thing we want. So yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't sort of made that link of it being a tool as such, other than just thinking, oh, that'll get me in the mood. Mm-hmm. But that's really interesting. Actually, I will do now, because if it works for Olivier is like like a true master, right? He's like, everything he does makes you want to weep.
Yes. Cry, weep, and want to kill him. All of it of the same.
Yeah, he's so good, and it just looks so kind of not effortless because you can see the work there, but it's so natural.
Natural, that's the word. Exactly, that's the word. With him, it all feels natural. It's not effortless. Is not the word because especially as an artist yourself, it's not. It takes a lot of effort to make it look effortless, as they say.
Yeah.
But the other way, he looks natural. Yeah.
And you'll see a lot of people kind of aping a bit of his style. There's lots of his, but he then comes out with something new. He's like Bowie. He's sort of slightly reinvents his line, and it's like, oh, okay, he's doing that now. You guys have fun doing that. I'm doing this. And he's phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. I was also asking because in some cases artists just tell me it's not the music, it's the cacophony. I mean, just noise. And I always explain that I am the fifth of 5 boys. So of course in my parents' house, them, because it was 5 boys, it was always noise. And when you get if I'm working with no sound, with silence, even with closed window and no sound from the street, I always think that Jack Torrance, from The Signing, is going to get behind my back.
Yeah.
I need the cacophony. I need something. Is that your case too, or it has to be more specific?
100%. Yeah. I did find myself doing early on in the first lockdown was there's YouTube videos of people just wandering the streets through New York or Barcelona or Paris, and I did have some of those on for a while. I think just to sort of get a sense of people. And those noises, the street noises, because it was so quiet. And I live in a little town in Devon, which isn't very noisy anyway, really. So like New York level noise. But I really missed just that ambient sound. There's only so much bird song you can listen to. And I definitely like to have some, to the point where sometimes I think maybe I should switch them off and have some quiet.
Yeah.
Maybe it's healthy to have things all the time, to go to bed with AirPods in and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know I need, something going. yeah.
Cacophony, yeah. Like, don't tell me you're looking at those videos just with a tear in your eye, saying, "People, I miss
Yeah.
people."
Yeah. 100%.
And the other part about the music is, if I asked you if comic storytelling is music for you, if it would be music, what could it be? Rock and roll, jazz, or a symphony?
Oh God. I guess it depends on the comic, doesn't it? There are certain comics I can imagine would be perhaps jazz or a symphony, but I guess rock and roll is kind of there's that kind of I'd have to I think you'd have to reserve jazz.
Wait, you can add that fourth option, because all your breeds until now have always told me known one of those, and they tell me the fourth option, which is punk.
Punk.
Yeah. All the breeds until now, every time I ask, they tell me, no, comics are not any of those. Comics are punk.
Yeah, do you know what? If you mentioned that, I would have said punk 100%, because I was just thinking, really.
That's why I didn't mention it.
That's why I was struggling, because I was thinking, rock and roll, are they? No, they still feel sort of underground, really. In their sort of, in their whole, everything about them, the way they're made still feels a little bit like that. And how it's still, no matter the big corporations behind it, it's still a bunch of people in little rooms, basically jamming these things out. We never know. You might get the script is the start, and then the art comes, and no one really knows where it's going. So in that respect, I suppose it's more jazz-like, more contemporary jazz-like.
Yeah.
But it's more. I'd say punk, definitely garage band sort of. Punk.
Yeah.
Sort of maybe early hip hop, passing the mic, that style.
That's true, because by the end of the day, you you get the script. That's all fine and dandy, but you are the fucking, sorry, my language. You're the DP. You're the artist. You're the lining guy. You're even the catering guy. You're everything, because there's no budget and there's no. It's like you, as you said before, your experiences make you decide what's going to be and how it's going to be on the page. So in that sense, it's jazz, but especially it's punk, because there's nobody that can control your everything you do, the angle, the lightning. That they could in a movie, but they can't in comics. That's all your decision, right?
Yeah, totally. And because the thing about punk as well that fits is, which I suppose with rock and roll it does work, but it is a lot of it's not necessarily kind of taught. You've got to kind of work this out yourself as you're going. A lot of it sort of, it is kind of finding the rhythm and then and sort of jamming it out, really. So it's not to sort of wax too lyrical on this metaphor, but like it is a bit like that. It is a bit of feeling around to find that thing. Whereas a symphony perhaps feels a little bit more like. I think there are certain books where you could say it was a symphony in terms of everyone's working on such a level that there are certain masterpieces out there that are literally everyone just got together on that perfect moment, and everyone's in perfect tune. So there are books out there like that.
I honestly always considered superhero comics as a symphony.
Interesting.
Because they go up. You have the fight scene, then you go back to the dune. You have the calming moments, then you go up and down again. So in that way, they work as a symphony. I'm not saying they are. I mean that the structure is more like that.
No, that makes sense. So you're thinking structurally. I was thinking more creative, as in how are they made?
That's
rather than the actual books themselves. I can see.
So structurally, for you, what is a Skyward in terms of music?
Skyward. Oh God, I don't know. Well, I'm just going to say stuff I like, right? I'm just going to say sort of. I'm not going to say a band or whatever I don't like. So it's going to be. Do you know what? I don't know actually. That would be more jazz-like, I think. That's more because it's freeform. The whole thing was freeform, and there's nothing was anchored, and you could just basically sort of go where you wanted, really. So that was definitely more that, I think.
Loki.
That was more, I'd say, avant-garde, new wave, post-punk.
I thought you were going to say that's progressive rock.
Oh yeah, it could be. I could see that too. He's a bit of everything, isn't he?
And Captain Marvel.
See, that's more of a symphony, I think. That's big, sort of bombastic, a lot of pomp and circumstance. So that's the stuff I was, like I say, listening to the soundtracks. That's much more that kind of thing, really. I don't. Carol Danvers is sort of a character who I still don't 100% know the way I feel like I know sort of Peter Parker or whatever, sort of thing. So there, she's more remote to me in that respect. So
that's one of the problems I've heard, from some artists regarding Carol, and I'm not saying this is a bad thing. Is that it's more difficult to get into her head, right?
Yeah, that's part of her sort of charm.
Yeah,
is that
that's what I was saying in advance. I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
No, sure, no, something else. But that's the thing, though. She's a little bit. She's a bit distant, and so that's. But so yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think what she would even. I imagine she listens to pretty much sort of relatively straight rock and roll music, actually.
Yes. Yeah. So I see her more, as you said, straight rock and roll. That what the Guns N' Roses, T-shirt in the movie. Like maybe, but I feel Carol could be more, straight classic rock and roll.
Yeah, I reckon. Yeah. Not that I've given it mind. I've never really thought about any of these guys. I never assume they've got the same sort of music taste as I have, really, I suppose. But
I tend to ask that to the artists that love music, which is your case. Is what's you just provoked another question, which is what do you think Peter Parker listens to?
Well, that's funny enough. That's what I was thinking. I was thinking, do you know what? I reckon I probably wouldn't like it. And he's like my favourite character, but I probably think he's quite straight, isn't he, in some ways?
I think that depending on the era where we're reading his comics, Peter Parker could be always listening to crooners.
To who?
Crooners, like crooners like Sinatra.
Oh God, crooners! Yes, sorry, beg your pardon. Yeah. Well, that's
right now. He loves Michael Bublé.
Oh, okay. Well, he's great. I guess it's not my scene, but he's fair play to the Bublé. But yeah, if he likes, New York sort of Frank and Dean and stuff, that's all right, isn't it?
And what do you think? Okay, this is going to be probably that you would never like that music, but what do you think Superman listens to?
Oh,
not the Valkyries, no.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. No, Superman, Clark Kent. What does he get down to?
Just remember, he grew up in a small town.
Country was the first thing I thought.
Smallville, whatever state that is, I don't know. In that state, Arizona, or whatever.
It's just a classic. He's a classic rock guy, surely, isn't he?
You don't think he's a country music guy?
I didn't. That was my first instinct, for sure. Was maybe it's proper. Maybe it's good. Sort of Hank Williams sort of. Willie Nelson, probably like some good country.
I remember having a conversation with my wife about it, and then with Kurt Busiek.
Johnny Cash. There you go. Johnny Cash.
Years later about that, and she was telling me, no, he was a country guy until he met Lois Lane.
Yeah.
One of the joys and the reasons he loves her theories are amazing. She's the clever one in the family, clearly. One of the things that why he loves Lois so much is that he was a country guy, and she was his door to a lot of things, including music. So he became a Beatles, Rolling Stones, and all that kind of thing that for us we take for granted, but
sure.
Lois introduced him to this world.
That makes a lot of sense. And there are still those roots of those early country bands in those bands. There's a lot of that in Rolling Stones and stuff. Yeah, so it would be a good gateway drug for him to get into. Yeah.
But he would never like Bowie. He would never like Pink Floyd. He would never like The Who and all that because they are too rebellious for him.
Maybe, yeah. Which is depressing, isn't it? Maybe he does. Maybe he loves all. He's an alien. Maybe he loves Bowie.
That's true.
Maybe he's like this guy.
Or that reminds him too much of what he lost.
That's true. Yeah. Maybe he realized it. Maybe Bowie was from Krypton too.
This is getting too weird. But the last one.
Batman. Just shouting. Shouting all the time. Just like a big dark noise. Like whatever the opposite of white noise is.
Okay, there you go. That's fine. And For you,
Or the Spice Girls, maybe, or something like that. Something like maybe it's really into like whatever the latest hits are. I don't know, actually, Batman. I don't imagine him listening to much classical. I imagine, yeah, just sort of classical music, just popping around the whatever the Bat's like in the cave.
I can imagine him, like Phantom of the Opera, in the cave with a piano, with the organ, and also coming behind him, to nudge him in the head, like, don't you have it?
The Lego Batman movie did that when he does that was perfect. Yeah, that's why the shouting thing popped into my mind. It's all I can do.
I am Batman. I am that.
Permanently.
That's the perfect definition of him. Yes. So, if I ask you, among the characters you haven't been able to draw yet,
yeah,
which one is the one that you're like scratching at the table, saying, "I am not dying or retiring without touching that character"?
Well, there are a couple I've drawn a bit, but not much. Am I not allowed to have ever drawn them, or
what? Are you allowed?
Do I have to have never drawn them, or can I have just drawn them a little bit but want to draw them more?
More is admitted. Like we can say that was an anecdote, and you need,
sure.
to just
feel
it. It's like I didn't have time to real feel the character, so I have to come back. So yes, that's admitted.
Spider-Man is kind of my favorite character growing up. So he would be, and I've drawn him a couple of times, but never when I'm inking my own work. So I really would love her. And Doctor Strange as well. Huge Doctor Strange fan. And I drew him in a mini-series called The Deep. And funny enough, I heard Chris Picciello saying the same thing actually recently, that he wasn't a huge Doctor Strange fan until he drew him. And I was the same. The minute I started to draw him, I was like, I could just draw this guy all the time, basically. I love drawing this guy. And so, yeah, Doctor Strange is like definitely right up there. I'd love Conan. It was such a big part of my kind of early comic collecting that, Conan, perhaps not the first things. I've drawn so many female characters. It's sometimes the idea of drawing like a big sort of slab of a bloke, throwing swords around would be sort of quite a nice change. Catwoman, I've only ever drawn her for a little 8-pager recently. I'd love to do a proper run on that. And Superman as well. Absolutely would love and have I think it's always nice if you've got an idea of how you would tackle that. I definitely have an idea of how I would tackle a Superman story.
What do you think defines? We're talking about Superman. What do you think defines him? That makes you interested in drawing him?
I think he's obviously it's not like a left field take. I think but he's meant to be sort of the best of what we could be. And I think he's super all this, and he's super intelligent. I think he'd be funny for a start if he's that smart, and I think he'd be. I think he's kind, and I think his strength is his kindness and his warmth, not looking around super grim with glowing red eyes. That doesn't do it for me for Superman.
No, that's not. I'm sorry, you Zack Snyder's director's cut, blah 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 fans. That guy, I don't know who that is, but that guy is not Superman.
Yeah. That's the character who would come to Earth that Superman would come and fight. Yeah,
absolutely. That's the perfect.
It'd be absolutely terrifying, this character. Yeah, and I don't think Superman would want to frighten us. So the nearest, I think, the Grant Morrison and Frank Whiteley Superman. That Superman, quite old-fashioned in some respects, but quite futuristic in other. There's that sort of vibe. Yeah. Sort of fatherly, but not. He is a difficult character to do because he is a father figure, but you don't want to write him like he's your dad. Do you mean? Much as we all love our dads, hopefully, but it's like you don't want to read about your dad. Yeah. So he is a difficult character to sort of to land. But I think that's also what could be so special about him, given the right sort of approach. And that's what I thought was so amazing about All Star Superman. It just seemed to just, and obviously Frank and Grant are just
yeah.
That was,
Yeah, I always mention three Superman stories as what I think the others should try to follow as Superman's model. One is Mark Waid's and Lee Liu's Superman Birthright.
Yeah.
All-Star Superman, and of course then the two stories that Alan told. That what happened to the man tomorrow and for the man who had everything. That's for me. That guy is Superman.
Yeah, and exactly. Yeah, but I think this he's been, I don't know how many years he's been kicking around now, but that's why I think he still feels untapped in loads of ways.
Yeah.
Because there is so much you could still do with that character, I think. To just it doesn't have to be when he's too strong, therefore he's you don't have to weaken him or make him angry or whatever to make him sort of interesting. But it just I'm not saying I've got the answer about how to make him interesting, but I know how I'd like to sort of draw him in that respect. I think I would try and add that he'll still be badass and still be able to come in and save the world in an amazing way.
Yeah,
but he would just, I think there's, again with like the Willer stuff with Skyward, these are symbols for hope.
Yes,
I think that's this is where I'm going to sound like a big old fart hippie now, but I am, and that's just the way it comes out. So I think that's really important. I think we need that. I don't want to see. I don't want to see people using Punisher flags and Punisher icons and stuff. This is bad. This is not a good thing. And I think these are just as important as these. Making everything badass with like 5 million gun straps and whatever is great, and I enjoy those books. But I think perhaps sometimes perhaps we need to push the other stuff as well, the joy and the hope and the character of the inner character and how that prevails.
That's absolutely. That's why I was talking about when talking about I don't know how you have watched the Ted Lasso, the show.
No, not yet. No.
That's the same thing. Ted Lasso is a show about it's about hope.
Yeah,
it has naivety. It's a guy who is makes no sense if you think about it. It's a guy who's a coach in a American football team who's drafted to be a coach, a manager in a British.
Yeah.
So it makes no sense. But it's all about hope and about ingenuity. So when I was watching that show, it's like this is what we need now.
Oh wow, okay, I'll definitely check it out.
You're talking about Superman. I think that's the perfect definition. What do we know in the middle of a fucking pandemic? We need hope. That's when I was like when I asked Cebulski about are the characters in the Marvel universe going to wear masks? Because one artist asked me about it, just in case they needed to do it in the background or something. Right. And CB told me we discussed that at Marvel, and we decided no, because you have that every day. And we want you guys to have escapism. If we do that, you're going to be seeing what you suffer and you see every day. And we need you to escape. We want you to have fun.
Yeah.
So why would we be reading comics that are about cruelty, lack of hope, etc.? This is exactly the opposite of what we need right now, right?
Yeah. And it just seems so prevalent at the moment as well. It just seems like it's growing every day. I know we hear about things much more than we used to, but it's constantly beamed into phone alerts us every 5 minutes saying all this stuff. But it just, I just think there is, because there's not much of it about either, really, in terms of story. It's certainly in comics, because it's not always very dramatic, so it's difficult. Basically, it's much easier to make drama out of like situations and crisis after crisis. So it is difficult to make a character that's kind of hopeful. That's why I thought the first Wonder Woman movie was really good in that respect. Because it felt like, she is horrified by what she's seeing, and so she should be, sort of thing. Yeah, because it's bad. So, but there's also good, and there's a sort of a sense of a way out of this. I think that's what everyone just needs right now, isn't it? Just a sense of that.
Absolutely. You've had like 3 things I think that like picked up or going to. Possibly being adapted, have Highwaymen, Skyward, and now Shadecraft. How important it is for you guys who think, oh, I'm going to do a comic and then get it adapted. No, that's not how it works. How important is for you as an artist to work as an artist. And I mean with this is, you know that some people doesn't do the comics. They just do the comics so they can get them, purchased by Hollywood. And those comics, 99.9 periodical, they stink because they don't read like comics. So how important it is for you to just never think about the possibility of that happening?
With Skyward, it didn't even occur. It never, because the Highwaymen was optioned. That's I own a little stake in that. I own I've got 25% of that because I co-created it with Mark and Adam.
Yeah.
And then DC Wildstorm own the other half, something. So me and the guys own half, and then but that's like a Warner Brothers led situation. So we don't really know very much about it. And the last time I heard about it actually was the date Skyward came out. So it was April, when was that, 2016? So I haven't heard anything else since. I don't know what's going on there at all. But with Skyward, I mean, if you're going to sort of try and create something that you wanted to sell to Hollywood, you wouldn't come up with your first pitch as something where all of gravity disappears from the Earth, because it'd be expensive, right? That's an expensive. So when Joe had been kicking this story around, he'd sort of been cooking it for years, and it never even occurred to me that someone would want it really in that respect. The thing is, when I read the first pitch, literally the first couple of like lines, really, I could see the book, and because I was such a huge fan of like Mobius and stuff, I spent a lot of my kind of young sort of teen years and early 20s just drawing a lot of sort of female characters floating through cities, because he draws a lot of that stuff, right? So it was there. I could literally, it was there. Mm-hmm. So I never thought about how it might be beyond just, if it's creator owned, that's an option. Mm-hmm. But of all the options to a story, this is going to be so expensive, no one's going to want to touch it. So we were shocked when Sony came in, and they weren't the only ones who came in. There were quite a few people who came in, but the Sony deal was the best deal, and that was great. So when Shadecraft started, obviously I did have that thought, because we'd since learned that Sony had been interested in Skyward and still have the option for it. So I did have that going in for this one, and I had to genuinely just put it out of my mind, because
that's the thing.
The minute you start,
I was asking how important it is to take it out of your mind.
Yeah, it's like the minute you start doing that, comics are comics, and what's great about them is that they are comics, right? You can adapt them for other things, but it's not a screenplay with the pictures. And Joe definitely doesn't write like that. His scripts are, amazing scripts. They're dripping with character, and some of the best scripts I've ever read. And I've worked with some, amazing writers. So he doesn't write like that. He's an absolute rabid comics fan, mm-hmm. and we wanted to make comics together. So that was the thing. The situation with Netflix was just that they were able to get a look at it because of the circumstances Joe's in, and that was how that sort of panned out. But no, I don't think about it at all, because one, it would be quite intimidating. Two, I'd feel like I was starting to draw for someone else when I'm drawing for comics readers, and it's something I have absolutely no control over, to be honest. So it's lovely if it happens, but I live in a little town in Devon in the UK. I've got no interaction with any of this stuff. So actually, I've just been, do you know what? And I just love drawing comics. So that's whatever else happens is gravy. And if the show gets picked up and stuff, then I'll be a producer on the show. So that'll be a new role for me. And it will be it's a genuine sort of role, not like a title. But it's it's if and when. But comics are my sort of my passion. So
And also you couldn't be drawing for the right reasons, right? Which is, and if you don't draw for the right reasons, as we said before, it's practically impossible that it even looks decent, because you are not thinking about your reader, you're not thinking about the art form, you're just thinking about making money.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Well, again, they're quite high concept things as well. This is about shadows coming to life and attacking, and that, again, they're quite effects heavy. Mm-hmm. So they're not necessarily. The thing me and Joe have planned for our third title. Again, it's big scale wise. So these are not sort of things we think, well, let's just do a quick kind of, a quick quiet on-room story where we can do this. These are sort of high concept things, so you never really expect them to. And also, everything kind of to some degree feels like it gets optioned. So you can't. It's just. But it's one of the.
But you never know if it's going to happen, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I think pretty most things start being optioned, and whether they get made is a different matter, of course.
Question: another one. When you were told the Skyward was being optioned, did you think it was optioned, as you said, because of the budget of the gravity thing? Did you think, it's going to be an animated thing? And were you surprised when they said, no, it's not?
Yeah, do you know what? I'd actually I just found out. I'd just come out of the hospital, not the stay. I'd just been checked out in the hospital because I literally had kidney stones. Oh. So I was like, I'd had them a second time I'd ever had them in my life. So I was like kind of waddling out the hospital. I got a message from Joe saying, just Sony have picked up Skyward. So I can't go. I mean, it's one of those annoying things. I can't go into details.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
But the things that the names that were coming out of people involved were, it's much more than I was expecting. Yeah. So yeah. I mean, I'm not suggesting it's even down any route yet, but some of the names that have been sort of floated around in terms of involvement were pretty sort of like. So I was like, wow, this is this could be quite.
I wasn't trying to get any info now. I was just thinking about that. I honestly thought that animation would be the main choice you have in your head. Like, well, is it so so expensive? Maybe they think make it animated because that makes it of the film.
I always thought it would make a great Pixar movie type thing, that kind of thing. Brave, the character in Brave, there's definitely a bit of inspiration for the hair. So, I mean, when I first designed with her, she had more of like an afro sort of style hair, but Joe was like, no, I want this sort of to be sort of like more of a free flowing character. So she totally would have made it a fantastic animation character. Maybe I never know how things would pan out. Maybe it will one day. I don't know. But yes, and you'd have to imagine sort of like. I'm trying to think what's it, because it's not it's Pixar and then there's the Sony Animation division as well, of course. So I don't know, maybe it would definitely work that way.
Yeah, just so you know, my daughter, my 6-year-old, on Carnival, like a couple of weeks ago, she was dressed as Merida from Brave. So. Oh wow.
Yeah, I mean, it was on TV again over Christmas. It was just like thoroughly. It's kind of like a sort of people don't really speak about it so much, but it's a great movie. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let me see before we leave some comments here. Alice Guimaraes, hey guys, thanks for another amazing live chat. Thank you for watching. Sam Gardner Jr. They had Game of Thrones rickshaws when we went. I guess he means San Diego. And Pedro Mercader tells you, hello everyone. What was the most challenging about working in a cult title like Lucifer?
Just the initial. Do you want to draw the relaunch of Lucifer? That was a bit like. I mean, of course, the first answer is yes, 100% yes, and then immediately you're like, hang on, do I? Because it was so well loved. But I read the script and I saw where Holly was taking it, and it was just. And I felt, and I knew, like, I'd worked with Ellie before, Ellie Pyle, who was amazing. So I knew the people behind it, and Shelley, obviously, of Vertigo, and Molly as well. So they were. I knew the team involved were like the best of the best, so that gave me some sort of comfort, knowing that I'd be going in with those guys behind me, really handling it really well. They mentioned, the old series and said, this is, this is we know it's a big thing to do, and we know there's a TV show coming out, and we know we're not going to tie. We thought about tying in that. We might if we can get little nods in there, it'd be sweet. But this is very much based on the original series, but telling the story carrying on. So it wasn't like a TV reboot type thing. So it felt like it was in super safe hands, and they'd already thought deeply and answered all the questions I had about it, basically. So I knew going in, I was kind of protected there. And then I knew it entirely. Again, it was one of those things where it's always nice if you have, like I said about Superman with Skyward and stuff, if you've got an idea about how you want to tackle a certain character, or someone says, hey, what do you think about drawing Lucifer? If you get that character there, if they appear in your mind as you would do them, you already sort of kind of got to say yes. So it was that case. It was like, I can see this, I could totally. And again, when I said earlier, I read Marvel all my life, read a lot of indie stuff in 8-Ball and then sort of all the Mobius stuff, things in the 90s. And then what brought me back into American comics was the Vertigo stuff. So this again was a bit like, oh, okay, this is the world that I love. This is what sort of drew me back in. So again, it was just I couldn't believe it. I can remember when I was meant to be doing another book, actually. I won't say which book it was, but it was for Vertigo. And then I got this message. I was walking home. I'd just been out for the night with Jock, actually, and I was walking home, and I just got this text saying, or this email saying, oh, by the way, do you want to do? Forget the other one. Do you want to do Lucifer? And it was like, yeah, big time. So it was very good. It was very. The schedule was pretty brutal on it actually, and I think each arc was 6 issues, so that was quite. Usually it's like about 4 or 5, right? You kind of like. And then when they decided to sort of wrap the book, I think it was another 6 issues. So it's 6 issues non-stop. So it was quite hard. But no, it was great fun.
Yeah, I hope it was fun, because that schedule rules.
Yeah.
Daniel Mainet tells you, hello, David. Hello, Lee. Big fan of Skyward. Here, it was a really nice and original comic story.
Oh, thank you.
And just so you know, we've been at this for more than 1 hour and 30 minutes. So I guess you have to go back to your family and work and all that. So one last for me, and I'll let you go before your wife kills me. Is there any stories that you have, not only as an artist, but also possibly as a writer, or plotter with a friend, come here and help me, write it, whatever you prefer here, that you've had in your head for years, and you've been stopping saying, I am not ready yet, but I'm going to tell this story before I die or retire. I say die because I don't think you're going to retire ever. Just so is there anything that's been in your head forever that you've been stopping, but when the moment comes, it's going to happen?
Yeah.
And that's what
No, I do. I've got one that's been cooking for a while, that I've spoken to a couple of people about who are publishers, and it's something I really want to do. A couple of things popped up that sort of made me realign it a little bit, because they were kind of, I felt they'd stolen its thunder a little bit, so perhaps waiting a little bit long on that. But yeah, it's definitely, I'm really into horror, supernatural. I'm not a big slasher fan, but good horror movies.
The real horror, not the one with axes and swords.
Exactly, yeah.
No, that's not horror. I'm sorry, that I don't like that.
I am 100% with you. So that sort of thing, anything a bit uncanny, a bit weird, and like David Lynchian sort of thing. So that's where I'd love to lean that way a little bit in a story. And I've got one idea that I'm sort of working out, but I'm so busy and supporting the family and stuff, so it's very difficult for me to you find time. And also, there are so many other things that keep popping up that are so good that it's so hard to say, do you know what, I'm actually taking a year to do this or whatever. And perhaps that's, but I do definitely hope that, the next, I've got like the synopsis done, and I've got the first few pages kind of like laid out into, but it's just a case of whether, I would love to have a go at properly writing some, Marvel and DC stuff as well. Maybe perhaps I could maybe wangle a little black and white 8-pager, Batman black and white or something one day or something. I don't know.
Marvel is also doing, DC is doing more, but Marvel is also doing a lot now. They did Wolverine and the black, white, and blood, and I think they're going to do some more. So just saying.
I would love that. Like I said on Twitter the other day, that when I did the new Captain Marvel art, my editor mailed me beforehand and said, "You got anything you'd love to tell? Any character you really want to play with and stuff in the new Carol art?" Because it was months before I was due to start. It was like I just finished last Avenger, and I was like, "Yes, Agatha Harkness. Agatha Harkness, please." And I want to design some Kree witches that we've never seen, like Sith witches, real nasty things. To go up against Carol, and I just never went, and never heard back, But I probably meant that there was a big sort of we're not allowed to use Agatha anywhere. But one of the first comics I ever read was the Fantastic Four going to Whisper Hill and meeting Agatha Harkness, who'd stolen Franklin, I think, and there was Nicholas Scratch, her son. So I was like, I really want to. They were again, like I say, it's a bit of horror, So I really want to tell this stuff. So whether I'll get a chance to at some point, I don't know.
You know what? This year is the 60th anniversary, and they're looking for stories to tell for that anniversary. So going back and touching into that story, I just leaving it there, like this. So Tom. So just. Hey Tom, you've been interested in this. Just saying.
That's what this entire conversation has been leading up to. This is what it's all been about. It's all been staged until we get to this moment.
Anyway, my friend, thank you so much for being here. That's
fantastic to see you.
I hope you enjoyed this. Please don't cut, because I want to say proper thank you when we're off the air. And to you all, thank you for being here. Sorry about the connection problems, because I know there's been some. I still can't see myself, but that's good because I'm ugly as shit, so I don't want to see me. But take care of yourself. Be decent. Wear your mask. As we said at the beginning, still not a lot of people vaccinated, so we need to take care of people and wear our masks, okay? And see you here back on Thursday with artist Daniel Mainé, who's talked about Skyward a bit before, and Jose Angelares in Español on Thursday. So thank you again, Lee. Thank you all.
Bye. Thank you.
Emily, thank you there, because I just saw you. Thank you. And we're off in 3,